I still remember the sound of the door clicking shut behind her packed suitcase. It wasn't loud, but it felt like it cracked my chest open. I stood in the living room, staring at Aisha, waiting for her to explain why she was dressed like a stranger in my house. I didn't plan for it to end like this, she said, her voice steady. I laughed without humor. Then how did you plan it? She looked past me, not at me. Please don't make this harder. Harder. I stepped closer. You're leaving. How can it get harder? She sighed. I've thought about this for months. That sentence knocked the air out of me. Months? While I was planning our future? She folded her arms. I need security. I whispered, am I not enough? She hesitated, and that pause hurt more than her answer. Love doesn't pay bills, so that's it. I asked, money wins? He can give me a life I won't regret. Right. The room spun. Who is he? She swallowed. His name doesn't matter. It matters to me, I said. I shared my life with you. She finally met my eyes. He's successful, stable. I feel safe. I made you safe, I said. I worked day and night. I know, she replied softly, but it's not enough anymore. I felt small. Tell me what I can fix. There's nothing to fix, she said. I've already decided. I grabbed our wedding photo from the table. Was this a lie? She shook her head. It was real. It's just over. People fight for real things, I said. I'm tired of fighting, she answered. My voice cracked. I would have bled for you. She looked down. I believe you. Then why are you walking away? Because belief doesn't change reality. I hated how calm she was. Say you're sorry? I am sorry, she said, without tears. That's all. I asked, 3 words? She picked up her bag. Goodbye. I followed her to the door. If you walk out, don't come back. I won't. I stood frozen, hoping she might turn back. I said, please sit with me 5 minutes. She shook her head. Dragging this will only hurt us. I said, it's already killing me. She answered, I can't stay. I asked, did he tell you to leave tonight? She said, no. This is my choice. I whispered, then choose me. She replied, I already chose. I asked, was I ever enough? She said, you were kind. I laughed bitterly. Kind isn't loved. She said, love needs comfort. I said, I slept hungry so you could eat. She looked away. Please don't guilt me. I said, I'm not. I'm breaking, she said. I'll remember you kindly. That hurt worse than hate. I said, I don't want memory. I want you. She said, I want a future, I asked. Without me? She nodded once. I felt something tear inside me, quiet and final. I realized begging only erased me more. I straightened my back and stepped aside. I said, go. She hesitated, then walked out. I stood alone, listening to my breathing shake. The quiet screamed every promise we made. I knew this night would follow me forever. Because it was the moment I learned love couldn't compete with fear. The door closed. Silence filled the room. I sat down slowly and stared at the empty couch. I said her name out loud just once. No one answered. My phone buzzed, but it wasn't her. I dropped it. I told myself not to cry, but tears came anyway. I pressed my face into my hands and whispered promises too late to matter. The walls felt closer. The air felt heavy. I stood up again, unsure where to go. I realized the man I was an hour ago was gone. Love had not saved me. Tonight marked the first moment of loss. I did not know it yet, but this pain was the beginning of everything. It shaped who I would become. Even if tonight destroyed me completely, it changed my life forever. Starting right now, I saw them by accident. I wasn't looking for her. I was just walking past the cafe near my old office when Bill grabbed my arm and said, don't turn your head. I turned it anyway. She sat by the window, smiling the way she used to smile at me. Across from her sat a man in a sharp suit. He leaned back like the world belonged to him. That's Harris Malik, Bilal whispered. Big name. I stared. So this is him, Bilal said. I told you not to look. Aisha laughed at something Hari said. I felt my stomach twist. She never laughed like that with me. Bilal sighed. You're hurting yourself. Haris reached for her hand. I clenched my fists. He touches her like she's already his. She is, Bilal said quietly. I swallowed. She used to hold my hand when I couldn't pay rent. Bilal looked at me. Stop, I said. He's not even trying. What do you mean? He's not proving anything, I said. He doesn't have to. Haris paid without checking prices. He waved at the waiter like a king. I thought, he doesn't count coins. I built love from nothing, and it still wasn't enough. Bilal said, come on, let's go. I want to hear him talk. Bilal snapped. Why? Because I need to know what replaced me, Hari said. We'll fly out Friday. Aisha smiled. Where? Wherever you want. I laughed under my breath. Freedom for sale, Bilal warned. This isn't healthy. I whispered. Neither is pretending I don't care. Aisha leaned closer to Haris. I imagined her saying my name like that once. I remembered promises. My chest burned. Bilal said, he'll ruin her. You don't know that, I said. Bil said. Men like him ruin people. I watched Harris stand and shake hands with new arrivals. He's not careful. What? He thinks he can't lose. Bilal pulled me away. You're invisible to her now. I didn't answer. Across the glass, Aisha didn't look up. That hurt most. I wasn't replaced. I was erased outside. Bilal said, talk to me. I said. She left because I was poor. She left because she was afraid. Same thing, Bilal argued. No, it's not, I snapped. Fear chooses money. Bilal sighed. You're going to drown in this. I already am, I said. We walked in silence. My phone buzzed. Not her again. Bill stopped me. Listen. Don't chase ghosts, I said. She's alive. She's gone, he corrected. I asked, what if I had money? Bilal said, don't do that. What if I was him? Bilal grabbed my shoulders. Then you wouldn't be you. I thought about that all night. I heard Aisha's laugh. I heard Haris's confidence. I heard my own voice asking useless questions. At home, I stared at the ceiling and said to the dark, you lost. My other voice answered, or you learned. I didn't sleep. I imagined Haris winning without effort. I imagined Aisha choosing comfort daily. I imagined myself fading. By morning, jealousy burned into something sharper. I said out loud, I won't beg anymore. No one answered. That was fine. I felt invisible, but I was still watching. Bilal called later and said, promise me you'll stop checking on them, I replied. I just need one more look. You're lying to yourself. Maybe, I said, but I need this pain honest. He said, pain can rot you or sharpen me. Bilal went quiet. That sounds dangerous. At least I'll feel something, I said. The next day I passed the cafe again. They weren't there. I felt both relief and anger. I stared at my reflection in the glass and asked, why were you not enough? My reflection said nothing. I whispered, you worked. You loved. You stayed. Still nothing. I remembered Aisha saying, you were kind. I laughed. Kind doesn't win. A voice in my head replied, not yet. I walked home, counting steps like debts. Every step replayed scenes. Her smile, his watch, my empty hands. I said, I see him everywhere. I argued with myself. Stop, I answered. Not until it makes sense. Night I told the ceiling she upgraded. Ceiling answered with silence. I said I wasn't replaced by love. I was replaced by certainty. The truth burned, but felt solid. For the first time since she left, my anger aimed forward instead of inward. I didn't hate Aisha. I hated what weakness did to me. I said, never again. That promise stayed. Always. I lost my job on a Tuesday. My manager didn't even look ashamed. He said, it's not personal. I nodded and said, I understand, even though I didn't. When I stepped outside, I called Bilal and said, "They let me go," he said. "I'm sorry," I replied. "Don't be." The call ended. Silence stayed. At home, the bills waited on the table. I picked one up and said, "How am I supposed to pay you?" The paper didn't answer. I opened another letter. Reminder, final notice. I laughed and said, "Of course." I sat on the floor and talked to myself. "You failed," I answered. "I tried." I said, "Trying doesn't matter." I replied, "It used to." I remembered Aisha saying, "Love doesn't pay bills." I whispered. She was right. My phone rang. "It was Sarah," she asked. "Did you hear?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm sorry." I said, "Don't lie." She replied, "I'm not." I asked, "Did you know?" She paused. "For a week." I smiled bitterly. Everyone knew before me. She said, "You'll find something else." I asked, "When?" She said, "Soon." I said, "Soon doesn't stop hunger." She stayed quiet. Then she said, "You're stronger than this." I answered, "I don't feel strong," she said. "Feelings lie." Then she added, "Get up tomorrow." The call ended. That night, my mind replayed every argument. I heard Aisha saying, "I need security." I heard myself saying, "I'll fix this." I covered my ears and said, "Stop." The memories didn't listen. I opened my phone and typed her name. I stared at the screen and said, "Say something." Nothing came. I deleted the message and felt smaller. The next day, I went to Amy's house. She opened the door and said, "You look thin." I said, "I'm fine." She said, "Sit." I sat. She slid a plate toward me. I said, "I'm not hungry." She answered, "Eat anyway." I ate slowly. She watched me like she always did. After a while, she asked, "She gone?" I nodded. She said, "Job?" I nodded again. She touched my hand and said, "Still breathing?" I looked up. "Yes," she said, "Good." I said, "I failed you." She shook her head. "No," I said, "I couldn't keep my wife." She said, "She wasn't yours to keep forever." I said, "I couldn't provide." She said, "You provided love." "That didn't save me," she replied. "It saved you from being cruel." I asked, "What do I do now?" She said, "Stand." I said, "I'm tired." She said, "Rest, then stand." I whispered, "I don't want to beg." She looked at me hard. "Then don't." Her words stayed heavy. On the way home, I thought about disappearing, not dying, just quitting effort, letting days pass. I said to myself, "No more fighting." Another voice said, "That's surrender." I argued, "What's the difference?" The voice answered, "Pride." That night, darkness felt loud. I lay on the bed and said, "I'm done." The ceiling didn't argue. I closed my eyes and imagined letting everything fall apart. No effort. No hope. It felt tempting. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. Just one line. "Get up tomorrow." I sat up. I said, "Why?" I remembered Amy's hand. Her calm voice. "Still breathing?" I stood and looked at myself in the mirror. I said, "You won't beg." My reflection looked broken. I repeated it. "You won't beg." My voice steadied. "Never again." I sat down and picked up the bills. I stacked them neatly. I said, "I'm still here." No one clapped. No one cared. That was fine. I whispered, "Rock bottom isn't the end." I paused, then added, "It's the floor." Words felt weak. I said them again, louder. "I'm not done." I lay back and breathed slowly. Pain stayed, but something else joined it. "Resolve." I said, "I'll survive." The room stayed quiet. For the first time, the quiet didn't insult me. I closed my eyes and made one promise. No chasing. No begging. No shrinking. I didn't know how I'd rise. I only knew I would. I stopped asking why. That was the first change. When my phone stayed silent, I didn't stare at it anymore. When her name crossed my mind, I didn't follow it. I told myself explanations won't heal you. The voice inside asked, "Then what will?" I answered, Work. Billo noticed first. He said, "You've gone quiet," I replied. "I'm listening." He frowned. "To what?" I said, "Everything I ignored before. Didn't understand." That was fine. I met Umar at a small seminar I almost skipped. He asked, "Why are you here?" I said, "To learn." He smiled. "Everyone says that." I said, "I lost too much to stay ignorant." He leaned closer. "Loss can educate or destroy." I asked, "Which did it choose for you?" He laughed. "Both. We talked after." He said, "Tell me your story." I said, "No excuses. I failed." He shook his head. "Failure is information." I repeated that sentence all night. When I told him about Aisha, he stopped me. "Not her," he said. "Tell me about you." I tried. He listened quietly. Then he said, "You chased love. You avoided power." I felt exposed. I asked, "Is power worth it?" He answered, "Power gives you choice." That stayed with me. I began studying business late at night. Words replaced anger. Numbers replaced regret. When frustration hit, I said, "Focus." When memories came, I replied, "Later." Slowly. Later meant never. Sarah called and said, "You disappeared."
Oh.
I said. "I'm busy," she said. "With what?" I said, "Becoming useful." She paused. "That sounds lonely," I answered. "It's quiet. Stop telling people I was okay." I stopped explaining myself. Silence felt cleaner than pity. Mar introduced me to Zain one evening. Zain looked tired but sharp. He said, "You're the quiet one." I replied. "I listen." He nodded. "Good. I've heard enough talking for one lifetime." We shared coffee. He said, "I lost my partner. Not to death." "To greed?" I said. "I lost my wife to comfort." We didn't ask questions. "Respect formed faster than friendship," Zain said. "I have an idea, but not enough trust." I replied, "I don't have much, but I don't run." He smiled. "That's rare." We spoke numbers. Risk. Time. When doubt crept in, I said, "I won't beg anymore." Zain raised an eyebrow. "For money?" I said, "For approval." He understood. At night, anger visited less. When it came, it wasn't loud. It asked, "Remember her?" I answered, "Remember yourself." It passed places we used to go. I didn't stop. I didn't speed up. I just walked through. Billo confronted me one day. "You're acting like she never existed." I said, "She exists." "I don't." He frowned. "That doesn't sound healthy," I replied. Neither did begging. Umar later said, "You've changed." I asked for better. He said, "For real," he added. "Pain sharpened you?" I answered, "Then I'll keep it." Money didn't come fast. Respect came slower. Rejection came often. Each no taught me more than yes ever did. I stopped reacting. I started planning. Zain once asked, "Why don't you celebrate small wins?" I said, "Because I'm building quietly." Nodded. Silent builders last. Sometimes Aisha entered my thoughts unexpectedly. I didn't curse her. I didn't miss her. I said she chose. Then I chose again. Moore called late one night. "I put your name forward," I asked. "For what?" He said, "Opportunity." My chest tightened.
Why me?
He replied, "Because you stopped screaming." I said yes without rehearsing fear. Afterwards, my hands shook. I told them, "Not now," stood by my window and spoke to the dark. "I'm not chasing. I'm creating." The city didn't answer, but it listened. Zain texted, "We start next week." I replied, "I'm ready." I wasn't, but I was closer than yesterday. No one noticed me anymore. "That was my advantage," I whispered. "Stay invisible." Silence wrapped around me like armor. I wasn't healed. I was focused. Anger had become fuel instead of fire. I didn't burn anymore. I built. For the first time since she left, I wasn't reacting to loss. I was choosing growth. Time moved without asking me. Months turned into years while I stayed quiet. Bilal once said, "You vanished." I replied, "I stayed busy." He said, "Doing what?" I answered, "Building." That was all. Zane called one evening and said, "Profits are steady," replied. "Privacy matters more." He laughed. "You're allergic to attention," I said. "Attention invites damage." I learned Haris Malik's name without searching. His empire creaked in whispers. Umar warned me once, "Don't stare at enemies." I said, "I'm not staring. I'm watching patterns." Nadia entered my life through a contract review. She asked, "Why hide ownership?" I said, "Because power works best unseen." She smiled slightly. "Morally flexible, but effective." I said, "I don't want revenge." She replied, "Then why are we here?" I paused. Control. She didn't judge. She said, "Then we move carefully." I nodded. Care felt like breathing. Rahman contacted me by mistake. He thought I was nobody important. He said, "Liquidity is tight." I asked casually, "Where?" He answered, "Upper management." I asked, "Names?" He laughed. "Even walls have ears." He underestimated silence. At night I argued with myself. "Why are you still here?" I answered, "Because I chose not to beg." The voice replied, "Is this healing?" I said, "I don't know yet." Zane once asked, "Do you hate him?" I said, "I don't think about him." He raised an eyebrow. "You bought his debt." I said, "I bought opportunity." Said, "Call it what you want." Nadia briefed me again. "Stock value slipping?" I asked. "Natural?" She said, "Arrogance usually is." I smiled without joy. I remembered Aisha when success felt hollow. I asked myself, would she notice now? Another voice answered, "Does it matter?" That voice grew stronger. Rahman called again. "They're selling assets quietly," I asked. "Why quietly?" He said, "Fear." I thanked him. He didn't realize he handed me leverage. One night Umar said, "You've changed." I asked, "Into what?" He answered, "Someone patient." Said patience was forced on me. He nodded, "And you mastered it." I studied numbers like faces. Weakness showed in patterns. I didn't rush. I let gravity work. Zane worried aloud. "If he falls, it's ugly," I said. "I'm not pushing," he replied. "You're positioning." I said, "Same outcome. Different hands." Nadia asked me directly, "What happens if you win?" I stared at the wall. "I don't know." She said softly that uncertainty is dangerous. I replied, "So is regret." Sometimes I dreamed of shouting, of revealing everything. Each time, I woke calm. "Silence fit me better now," Bilal asked. "Have you forgiven her?" I said, "I forgave myself." He blinked. "That's different," I said. "That's growth." Haris appeared on screens more. Interviews. Bold claims. I watched without emotion. He said, "We're stronger than ever." I muted him. Rahman texted, "Emergency meeting tonight." I replied, "I'll review." My hands didn't shake. Zane asked, "You okay?" I said, "I'm steady." He said, "That scares me." I replied, "It should." At times, guilt whispered, "You're enjoying this?" I answered honestly, "I'm enjoying stability." The whisper faded. Nadia closed a folder and said, "Transfer complete." I asked, "Invisible?" She nodded. "As requested." I breathed easier. I stood once by my window and said, "Karma doesn't chase." The city stayed quiet. I added, "It waits." I wasn't healed yet. I wasn't poisoned either. I was balanced on a knife made of patience. Power didn't arrive with noise. It seeped in. One contract, one silence, one unnoticed move at a time. I checked my phone. No messages from the past, only plans for the future. I said to myself, let it unfold. And for the first time, waiting felt like winning. I ran into her at a hotel lobby I used for meetings. I was talking to the receptionist when I heard my name spoken carefully. "Excuse me?" I turned. She was standing there, holding her phone, brows slightly pulled together. She looked at me like I belonged to a memory she couldn't place. "Yes," I said. She hesitated. "Do we know each other?" That single question cut deep and healed something broken at the same time. We do, I said. Her eyes searched my face. I'm sorry. You just look familiar. I nodded. Time changes people. She smiled nervously. I guess it does. And it hit her. Her lips parted. Wait, she whispered my name. I didn't confirm it. I didn't deny it. She stepped closer. It is you. Her voice shook. You look different, I said. You don't. That wasn't true, but it felt necessary. She glanced at my suit, the lobby, the people greeting me politely. I didn't expect to see you here, I replied. Neither did I. An awkward silence grew between us. She broke it. How are you? I answered, busy. She laughed softly. You always were. I said nothing. Silence did better work. She tried again. Are you okay? I met her eyes. Yes. Something slipped in her expression. Comfort cracked. Fear peeked through. She asked, You don't look angry? I'm not, I said. That's worse, she admitted. I raised an eyebrow. Why? Because you used to be loud when you were hurt, said I learned. She looked around like someone might be watching. Can we talk? I checked my watch. We are. Her shoulders dropped. I mean alone. I shook my head. Say what you need. I thought you'd hate me, I replied. Hate needs energy. She forced a smile. So what do you feel? I paused. Present. That answer confused her. She asked, Do you ever think about me? I chose honesty. Sometimes her eyes softened. I think about you a lot. I said, That sounds heavy. It is, she whispered. She stepped back, studying me. You changed? Yes, I said again. Because of me? I answered, because of myself. She nodded slowly. I heard you're doing well, I said. I heard nothing. That stung her. She looked down. I made a mistake. I waited, she repeated. I made a mistake, I replied. You made a choice. She clenched her hands. I didn't know it would feel like this. I said quietly, I did. Her voice broke. I thought comfort meant peace. I answered, It means safety, not peace. She looked at me like she was seeing debt collectors behind my eyes. He's not the man I thought he was. I asked, Are you looking for forgiveness? She froze. I don't know what I'm looking for. I nodded once. That's dangerous. She laughed weakly. You sound cold, I said. I sound calm. She stepped closer again. If I'd stayed, I cut in softly. You didn't. That stopped her. Silence returned, thick and honest. She whispered, Do you miss me? I answered, I miss who I was. Tears formed, but didn't fall. I was scared. I know, I said. So was I. She looked up suddenly. Then why does it feel like I lost everything? I replied, Because you measured everything wrong. Her breath shook. Are you happy? I considered the question. I'm steady. She nodded like that hurt more than anger. I don't deserve to ask this. Then don't, I said gently. A man called her name from across the lobby. She flinched. She said I should go. Yes, I agreed. She hesitated, waiting for something else. I gave her nothing. She turned, then looked back one last time. I'm sorry, I looked at her and felt no fire. I know. She walked away. I watched her shoulders tense as if the ground had shifted. I stood there, breathing evenly. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I realized something important in that moment. She didn't recognize me because I no longer lived where she left me. I walked toward the exit. Lighter than I expected, silence had finally said enough. The room was full, but quiet. That was intentional. Power doesn't need noise. I sat at the long table while papers were passed around. Nadia leaned in and said, Once you sign, it's public. I said, It already is. She paused. You're calm, I replied. This ended years ago. Today is paperwork. Across the room, Haris Malik argued with someone I didn't recognize. His voice was sharp. That's impossible. Nadia glanced at me. I nodded. She stood and said, "The acquisition is complete." Her words landed softly, like snow covering a grave. Horace turned toward me. His eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" I stood slowly. "You don't remember me?" His jaw tightened. "Should I?" I said, "Once you replaced me." Silence stretched. Aisha froze beside him. She whispered my name. I looked at her. "Please don't." Haris snapped. "You know him?" She nodded weakly. "He's my ex-husband." Haris laughed once. "That's impossible," I said. "Yet here we are." He stepped forward. "You did this?" I replied, "You did." He blinked. "I don't understand." I said, "You never needed to." Aisha's hands shook. She said, "You own everything." I nodded. She whispered, "This isn't real." I answered, "Neither was our marriage, apparently." Haris tried to smile. "This is business," I agreed. "Exactly." He lowered his voice. "Name your price." I shook my head. "You already paid." He leaned closer. "You planned this," I said. I waited. He scoffed. "For revenge." I met his eyes. "For balance," Aisha cried softly. "Why didn't you stop?" I said, "You never asked me to stay." She sobbed. "I didn't know." I answered, "You didn't want to." Haris snapped. "This isn't over." Hadia cleared her throat. "It is." She slid the final document forward. "Step aside." Security stood nearby, polite and firm. Haris backed away slowly. "You think you won?" I said, "Winning isn't loud." He glared. "You destroyed me," I replied. "You handed me the tools." Aisha stepped toward me. "Please." I held up my hand. "Don't," she said. "I made a mistake." I answered, "Mistakes apologize once. Choices live forever." Her knees shook. She whispered, "I have nothing." I said, "You have lessons." She cried harder. I felt nothing sharp. Just clarity. I turned to Nadia. "Is it done?" She nodded. "Completely." Zayn smiled from the corner. "Welcome to the top," I said. "I'm just passing through." Reese laughed bitterly. "This won't make you happy." Looked at him. It already did. Ow. He stared at me like I was a mirror he hated. "Say it," he demanded. "Admit you wanted revenge." I shook my head. "Revenge keeps you tied." I walked free. He opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he looked small. Aisha whispered, "I wish I chose differently." I replied, "I wish you chose honestly." She collapsed into a chair. I walked toward the exit. Haris shouted, "You think you're better than me?" I stopped. No, I turned. I'm quieter. The doors closed behind me. I breathed in deeply. My phone buzzed. "Bill," I texted. "Did you do it?" I replied, "It's over." He asked, "How do you feel?" I paused, relieved. Outside, reporters waited. I ignored them. Power doesn't explain itself. In the car, Zayn said, "You could have crushed them publicly," I said. "They're already crushed." "You chose mercy," I answered. "I chose peace." At a red light, I saw my reflection in the window. I said softly, "You survived." My reflection didn't argue. That night, I sat alone and thought about the choice I'd faced. Destroy them completely, or walk away strong. I realized something simple. Revenge wasn't the moment. I ruined them. Revenge was the moment I no longer needed to. I poured a glass of water and said out loud, "I own nothing from the past." The room listened. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I didn't answer. I stood by the window and watched the city move without me. No anger, no hunger, just stillness. I whispered one final truth to myself. They didn't fall because I pushed. They fell because I stopped holding myself down. It's with that. The empire carried my name, but it no longer carried my pain. I sat alone in my office after everything ended. No celebration, no shouting, just silence. Zayn called and said, "It's really done." I answered, "Yes." He asked, "You okay?" I said, "I'm steady." He laughed. You always say that now, I replied, because it's true. Billo came by later. He looked around and said, "This place suits you," said. "I built it quietly." He nodded. "You lost a lot to get here," I answered. "I lost illusions." He sat down. "Do you hate them?" I shook my head. Hate kept me tied. He asked, "So what do you feel?" I said, "Free." That surprised him. "After everything?" I said, "Because of everything." He smiled. "You really changed," I replied. "I learned." After he left, I stood by the window again. I remembered the man I was when she walked out. I remembered begging. I remembered feeling small. I spoke to that version of myself and said, "You survived." Part of me answered barely. I said, "But you did." I thought about Aisha, not with anger, not with longing. Just honesty. I said out loud, "I loved you the best way I knew how." The room didn't argue. I added, "You chose differently." That felt final. My phone buzzed. An unknown number again? I didn't pick up. I said, "Some chapters don't need replies." I sat back down and breathed slowly. I realized something simple, but heavy. I didn't rebuild my life to crush anyone. I rebuilt it because I refused to stay broken. I talked to myself quietly. "You didn't win." Another voice answered, "You healed." I nodded. Healing felt better than victory ever imagined. I looked at my hands. They didn't shake anymore. I remembered my promise. I smiled and said, "I never begged again." Outside, the city kept moving. People rushed. Dreams chased money. I stayed still. I whispered one last truth. Loss didn't destroy me. I paused. It shaped me. I turned off the lights and walked out with calm steps. No past pulling me. No anger pushing me. I didn't become powerful to prove a point.
By and Ben or I demand or remember my man by bam bang by ramen by by Siswan by